Etude number 2 is the Lento in G minor by Blazevich. This is one of the most beautiful etudes, in my opinion, for the trombone repertoire, and requires a lot of expression to play it with effective musicality. Now, throughout the piece, it needs to have a sense of longing and lyricism, and sound somewhat vocal in the techniques, and careful attention needs to be paid to how you approach your legato technique. So the legato playing on trombone is usually a combination of same partial slurs, where you use legato tongue to cover up the noise of the slide, and then different partial slurs or natural slurs where you may not need to use the tongue. Most of the time, if I can, I will use a natural slur because I like how the sound and feel combines to make the musical quality that I desire. And then you have to even that out by using the legato tongue where necessary along the same partial, or even sometimes across partials if the interval is difficult or particularly wide. So sometimes the legato tongue can be useful when you're crossing the partials as well. Another approach to legato playing is to play everything legato tongued, and that certainly has its merits. And so if you decide to approach it that way, you could be very successful. And you just have to make sure everything is even with the legato tonguing. Legato tonguing will vary whether you're in the high range or the low range, and where you use what syllable you use, whether it's further forward in your mouth where the tongue touches or further back. That will change as you go up and down the horn. So get accustomed to that. But then natural slurs, of course, you have to be able to move freely from one pitch to another in perfect control. And a lot of that comes from mouthpiece buzzing smears, so I recommend you do a lot of smearing on this. As far as expression and musicality is concerned, there are a lot of different characters, while the music has similar melodies throughout. Na 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 na, ya na na na, na 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 na, and all the different keys. It has a different character. At the beginning, I think of this as sort of a longing feeling of loss or grief. Measure 11 has a sense of hopefulness to it, like there's a the sun is going to come out tomorrow kind of feeling, but a little more intense. And then measure 17, kind of the opposite of that. Maybe it feels like the characters of resignation, where that person has given up and that what they hope for can't ever come true. You'll find different qualities as you play through this. Now, as far as playing musically is concerned, as long as you're not playing in a technically proficient way, it can be difficult to make music because you're always sort of stuck trying to overcome the obstacles of the trombone or the music through the trombone. And so you have to be very technically proficient with wide arpeggios, with intonation in different partials, and of course legato technique. So make sure you're working on that. That should be, I think, the primary focus while you are developing your musical character throughout your practicing. So getting into the preparation of the piece, as always, I think you have to number your measures, write in your breath marks, write in your alternate positions, and that'll just help you to prepare thoroughly throughout the coming weeks. So there's some long arpeggios to start in the mid-range and go up to high B flat. Measure 2 is one example, and it happens 3 or 4 times throughout the piece. And this is one of the harder aspects of the piece. And if the range isn't developed, then you have to be working on range development using maybe smeary scales like this. So I would try and do a scale, the A-flat scale with no tongue. Or B-flat. A sort of no tongue practice will help you learn how to adjust your embouchure in the high range without relying on the tongue to do the work. So it'll be air and embouchure doing all of the work in that situation, and that's going to make it a little bit easier when you come to these slurs. Another one, of course, is just to do lip slurs. Things like that take you all the way up to the high B flat and beyond. Now, specific to this arpeggio, it's a G minor arpeggio that starts on D and goes up to the high B flat. A lot of students may start with a good sound in the middle range, but as they get up to the G and the B flat, the note chokes off, and the sound chokes off because the throat's trying to help you play high. The throat is not an embouchure. It cannot help you play high. The air supports the sound. The embouchure, the aperture gets a little smaller for the high range, and you just learn how to control that. So I would practice this a lot without the tongue. No tongue, just connection. There's smears, that's okay, no big deal. We're letting the air and the embouchure do the work. Now, if you're having trouble, if you can play a good high B flat, but you're having trouble getting there from the middle D, what I recommend is starting the arpeggio with the feeling that you're already playing the high B flat. Has a certain feeling. So you can start the arpeggio with that feeling. And then when you get up to the B flat, it should have the same kind of ring that you have if you just come in on it with a good sound. So again, if you have the high range but have trouble getting through to the high notes, start the arpeggio with a high setting in the embouchure. Now, maybe some of the notes in the middle range won't quite sound as good, and you could work on that, evening the sound out. But you'll feel more comfortable getting to the high note and feeling a little less anxiety about it as you work on it. All right, now there's another difficult passage for intonation in measure 8. This passage between measure 8 and 11 goes through a lot of different partials above the staff. Each partial has its own tuning tendency. And if you're not careful about that, it's very easy to play these passages out of tune. So, like if you're starting on C sharp, measure 8, that is in a sharp second position. The D partial is flat. You have to raise it. 2 notes later, you're in E flat on the F partial. E flat is in flat third, then high F and flat first, and then E natural and flat second. Because the F partial is rather sharp, and you have to lower that. And then it works its way to the A flat partial with the high G in the second measure, measure 9. That note is in sharp, sharp second. You'll be surprised at how far in you might have to play that. Use your tuner to tell you. It will tell you in an honest way that you're flat. You need to raise that note. Same with F sharp. And then high A natural and should be in a pretty normal second position most of the time, depending on the instrument. But let the tuner kind of tell you that. And you're going to be going back and forth through all these positions. It's easy to get a little confused. So go slow using a tuner. See, my G is pretty high in there in a sharp, sharp second position. It doesn't really matter what it feels like here. If it's out of tune, it's wrong. So it has to feel good here, and it has to match the pitch of the tuner, and then you know you're going to be in a good position. And then use that position for G the rest of the way out. So again, all of these little passages, starting on the G now, and A is in a normal second, and then G after that is in a sharp, sharp second, and you have to be very flexible going back and forth through all of these positions. So, legato tongue where necessary on the same partial, and natural slur where it's available. However, in the music, there's a lot of different articulations. There are some slurred notes, there are some tenuto notes, there are just non-articulated notes, and I think it's a good idea to try and play what you see on the page before making some changes to it. In the end, I usually decide to play things more legato than what is marked because I like that sound for this piece. But go ahead and practice it the way that it's marked, using kind of a light tongue when it's non-legato, a little bit of a firm da tongue when it's tenuto, and then a smooth of a da articulation when you're playing legato, along with the natural slurs. You must keep the air support, especially as you come to the top notes, and then try and come down the scale. This happens before the fermata, measure 23, 24. That's one of the main spots for that. Also at the beginning, measure 2 and 3. So keep the support going after you've got the B flat. So that as you come down the arpeggio, it doesn't fall off the partial and lose the quality of sound that helps keep it feeling stable. So keep the support, keep the corners. Again, start things slowly, use a tuner as a guide to keep you locked in for pitch, and try and make some music once you've got a really good grasp on the technique of the piece. For sure, listen to a lot of Russian orchestral music, listen to a lot of lyrical music in the Romantic era, and let that sort of give you some tools for expression in this wonderful etude.